Oh no, it's choppy. I guess could have figured that one was going to happen. Welcome everybody. Well, shoot. Hey, welcome CC. Thanks for being here. I know it's choppy now, so I'm going to try to change the settings here real quick. Yep, I'm aware it's choppy. I just said that. Well, it's still choppy, so that kind of sucks. I'll be right back. That seems a little better. We'll make sure it's a little bit better. Yeah, it seems better. Cool. No, I was aware it was choppy. If it must be your first time here, welcome to Ham Radio, dude. Where I'm running a computer that's way too old to be operating most of the stuff we operate with. And today we're going to talk about why it's important to have more than one Meshtastic node. I lost it. There we go. Oh, I have poor internet quality. Hold on a second. That's weird. We're going to roll with that too, I suppose. But we are going to talk about why it's important to have multiple nodes, even in a household. And to get started, I guess I'd like to talk about what I hear a lot from the 7 weeks or whatever that I'm an expert at this now. And that happens to be with people saying, well, I turned it on and I just didn't hear anybody. There's nobody in my area. And I've started to look at Meshtastic as a different mindset now, because I'm not going to worry about there not being people in my area. I'm going to worry about building up my area and then continuing to expand out until I find somebody. And so that's why I say that, hey, 2 is 1, 1 is none. If you saw the video short that I posted today, Vince talks about it. Of course, it's a military expression. It's a police expression. And we're going to kind of show off some things today here too. So I believe it's not choppy anymore. We got about 9 people watching, but that's my fault because last week when I scheduled this, I wasn't feeling too hot. So I bumped it out a week and it probably just isn't propagating. So with that, thanks for being here, CC. Thanks for being here, Richard, and any of the other 7 watching. Local host, what's going on, man? Thanks for being here. Now, out of the 3 of you participating in the chat right now, can you tell me how many of you have a Meshtastic node, and if you only have one, or how many do you have? And I'm getting onto something here in just a second. We'll pull up Photoshop if it will let me. Please let me, please let me, please let me. I have 3, only 2 active. Very good. Three, 2 more on the way. Very good. And then no. Okay, so this is a really good start because I would be willing to bet that each of you that have mentioned you already have a node, you probably have multiple, I'm making an assumption here, but you have multiple, what I would call an entry-level node, like a LilyGo T-Deck, or basically a node that you might carry around is a better way to put it, right? And that's what I'm here to talk about today. That's fine. Here we are. We're in Photoshop. We're going to do a little bit of HRD Industries School of Art. Happy Tuesday, Nate. Thanks for being here. So we're going to actually hit on this right here. I think my signal sucks, so I have them in client mute. I'm going to talk about your sucky signal. And I'm going to actually use one of my neighbors for an example. So I'm going to be jumping between screens here. Let me just make sure that you could see everything. Looks like it. And we're going to, let's just draw a house here, okay? And in this house, we're going to make it a 3-story house. I know that, let's make it a 2-story house. I know that it's uncommon to have a 3-story house. Some people out here, you know. I'm using Photoshop today. If you couldn't tell, I should probably update it. Let's just say you have a 2-story house. Oh, well, this tablet sucks. Oh, it's because it's white. There we go. I had this all prepared before I rebooted. Maybe the house is on a little hill. Okay. But even though the house is 2 stories, and I'm kind of going slow because I want to draw. Pardon it. It's a barn now. God, that was bad. Even though the house is 2 stories, okay, those are windows, and you're on a hill, you have some really high trees in the area, right? So everything that we talked about in the past, it still holds true. I mean, if you don't have line of sight or near line of sight, everything is going to attenuate the signal from being indoors with an antenna to, so maybe you operate your node on the 1st floor down here. Okay, and so you all of a sudden you're operating your node downstairs, and you have now an obstruction of a house to go through or a window, depending on where you put it. And I'm speaking about one of the people that I know for real here. And now all of a sudden you're trying to go through trees as well, and that attenuates the signal. And you're like, man, I just don't see anybody in my area. Well, there's 2 trains of thoughts on this. And the first train of thought is going to be, you get multiple nodes like a T-Deco or a T-Echo, a Taco Bell Supreme, whatever we've called them in the past live streams. But what does that really accomplish for you? You have 2 of these. That's my portable node right there and there. What does that accomplish? It allows you to make communications in the house and play around and understand the technology a little bit better. And maybe you get down the block before you lose signal, because these are 2 very small nodes. And if you're unfamiliar, these smaller nodes operate with very minimal power, which necessarily isn't always a bad thing. However, when I talk about having like 2, that's great, because maybe you do leave. This is the house again. Maybe you leave one of the nodes at the house in the window, like we talked about. And maybe you go drive around town and you see, hey, and you probably watched my videos where I've been doing this, and you see where you could basically see and make contact with the trace route with your home station. Where that comes in handy is then you all of a sudden you start to articulate a site plan, and we're going to just kind of do that again. And all of a sudden, maybe you say, okay, well, this is home. I know that I'm really strong out to the east and the north and the northeast, but I get no signal out to the southwest, you know. So as I continue to build the network out, maybe I want to focus on the southwest, or maybe I just want to put that second small node I have on the southwest corner of the house, because that's where I'm most likely to be able to one day eventually see somebody. This is some really good art, by the way. And by the way, enrollment now for the HRD Industries School of Art. Act fast. Registration ends soon. And this is where we're going to continue on to talk about today, where did you know that there's higher power nodes out there? And there's also solar nodes out there. Where I'm going with this is, just because you have one node doesn't mean you should quit because you didn't see anybody. There's ways to increase the potential of being heard and being seen, which is great. And today we're going to talk about a couple of these options. So let me make sure that I'm still on the screen here as I could do that. Okay, check this out. Yeah. We're going to go through 2 scenarios, okay? The first one is not done yet, but I'm going to show you a rough draft of what it is, and it's still a low power transmitter, but it's starting to do really well. First of all, I have a steak knife here. That steak knife is because I was eating a steak. But all kidding aside, I suppose, I acquired this case from somebody who was selling it. So I picked it up because I said, hey, you know, why not? It came with this little Alpha 915 5 dBi gain antenna. You could see in here, I'm going to point it out. Somebody else will, otherwise, you know, if I don't. So you could see in here that there is some rust in here, which indicated to me that water is getting in right here, so I need to properly seal that. All that aside, though, what it really comes down to is cable management will occur eventually. But you have 4 18650 batteries in parallel. Okay, so that makes 3.5 volts times 4, let's just call it 14 amp hours. Yeah, that's about right. 14 amp hours worth of batteries. Okay. So you have 14 amp hours worth of batteries because of the parallel, and it's still putting out 3.7 volts, which the rack Whisk Mini enjoys, right? This is a rack. This is about a $29 device, the Whisk Mini. It's not super high power, but the really nice thing about it is it's very low power consumption. So now all of a sudden you can plug in, the nice thing about the rack is you could plug in the battery directly right here. Now let me get you guys a different color. And by the way, I can't see the screen, so let me jump over the screen real quick and make sure I didn't mess anything up. Yeah, you guys really can't see that black, so let me fix that here real quick. We're going to use bright green. So the battery, you know, with these whisk blocks goes right here. Now, the really cool thing about it is you see I have a USB-C cable here and some really bad cable management, and it goes out because this goes to a 7-watt solar panel. Why 7 watts? Well, if you do the math, and I think I did the math, you will be able to use 14 amp hours of battery, and you will be able to charge those with 5 hours of sunlight a day, and theoretically, this is such low power consumption that the batteries will never die as long as you get you could really go 30 some odd days without sunlight. So this is a completely self-contained unit. And this completely self-contained unit will allow you to basically think about it for a minute. If we go back to what I was saying earlier, if you have this house, okay, and you're trying to operate downstairs indoors and it's just not working, well, maybe you can at least get a solar unit. Maybe you have like a dish network arm. I'm thinking of this guy, by the way, that I've been kind of referencing. Maybe you have a dish network arm somewhere toward the apex of your house, and you don't use dish network anymore because it's 2025, and you just stream that stuff. Well, all of a sudden that comes useful because you put the solar panel up there and you put the node right here. Now we kept the coax run short. Remember, that looks great. We kept the coax run short from the alpha antenna, which is right on the top of this case. And it's just a very short run into the rack whisk block. And the reason for that is the less coax run we have, the less loss we have, right? And I think that's important to kind of point out that's why we kept it short. But all of a sudden, we're able to put this back up on the apex. And this is where the real fun begins, because I want to point out too, let's say that individual, let's go back to black. Back in black. All of a sudden, that individual, he's got this window here where he puts his node. And this is true because it's the only place where he has a window where there's like an outlet. And he's like, man, I get over to this side of the house and I can't connect to the Bluetooth for the node, so I can never like chat with anybody. Okay, well, you're doing it wrong. I swear I'm going somewhere with this, but if you had the whisk block up here with the solar power, meaning you never needed to plug it into a power source. You don't really have to, for the most part, worry about connecting to Bluetooth on this. Yes, there might be times where you want to run an update, and yes, there are starting to become over-the-air updates, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Eventually, you might have to connect to Bluetooth or actually go up there and connect directly to it. The cool thing about that solar panel is it uses that USB-C like we said as well. But once you have this up here, this is like your main unit listening. You've gotten it higher. You've gotten it outdoors. It's weatherproof. It's self-sustainable. So even if the power goes out, like all of a sudden you're good. And now you have the unit that used to just sit right here because that's the only place that sometimes you could see Dude's G2 or Dude's G2 at the RCOM building, or a Spork in the Road, which is a new node that I've worked on. Now you can carry that around with you, not just around your house, but all of a sudden you can go around the neighborhood, and you've expanded your reach, if you will. So now you got your house down and you got the area around your house down, and now you do the same thing once again. Let's just delete that layer. But you do the same thing again now. But now you don't just start at your house and do the drive around. Pardon me. You do the same thing you did before. You do a site survey. But now you go drive around, and remember we were saying like these were the good areas last time. Not only do you check these, but you see how much further you can get out with that. And you do the same thing and see if you've increased your range on this side. Okay. Now, once you've done a new site survey with a higher antenna, a higher node with a little bit more gain, a 5 dB gain compared to these stock antennas, all of a sudden you're realizing you're getting out a little bit further. Now you've worked on yourself. You've worked on building up your area, your node, everything about you, and the work hasn't ended yet. Because now maybe you were like, okay, well, I got this far. Let's just call this 3 miles. But I'm determined to get that town over, which is another 4 miles. And I can't get a total of 7 miles. I'm going to need something in between. And now this is where the fun begins, because you've already gotten your 2. You have the one that's in your house. You have the one that's on your roof. And now you start thinking about how I could expand out the network more while trying to find others, but also while helping others. Okay, so this is where I really want to start to stress the importance of having good connections and knowledge of people. I'll go back to myself at this point, where I was able to put up, we're going to talk about a couple different nodes in a moment, where I was able to put up a G2 node at a tower 100 feet in the air, 2 miles from me, but it extends out our coverage quite a bit this way, north, more east, I think. So having that connection really helps. And then all of a sudden you're out here, and I think you're starting to see, like, all of a sudden you're building your own network. You're not concerned about, oh, there's nobody else in my area. You're like, you're getting addicted to this thing about building nodes and understanding how the nodes work, not only how they work with communications, but how they work with hardware and how they interact and how you can make this work completely self-sustainable off the grid in case anything were to ever happen or whatever your purpose is. But having those connections is a really cool thing, because this owner is like, hey man, yeah, you could put up that, I don't care what you do. And one of the things that I kind of pointed out in the video the other day, and I'm going to close this window in just a second, like right now. One of the things I pointed out in the video the other day was that it's good to have connections and to start to talk with different people in your area and maybe get involved with the local education systems for their STEM programs. Now, it's a win-win. If you can get students and kids involved in STEM and they're doing this radio communications and they're chatting back and forth, like if you want to take it a step further, maybe they'll get involved in radio that way. Maybe that's like they start to realize how cool it is to tinker with radio waves and hardware, and they get involved in radio. But even if not, and you've made like this really good connection with the local school systems, maybe they'll be kind enough to let you put nodes on top of their towers or on top of their buildings, you know? And so all of a sudden, no, picture this. You have all your nodes over here. You've expanded out to being allowed to put one on top of a building somewhere at an education system. You went and you taught the kids about Meshtastic. They all get hooked and they all go buy Meshtastic units so they can chat with each other. And then when they go home or wherever they're at, they're also now part of the network. So you've actively worked to build the network out more and more and more. While you've established like your hard set points, you've also got other people hooked into it. And so, you know, that's just a couple of things that the mind doesn't stop. I want to show you and I want to share with you though. We talked about the whisk block, and I want to share with you a couple of the cost and the prices that might be associated with it, and what units I'm primarily putting up, and I'll explain why in just a moment. Oh, actually, I wasn't talking about you. I promise you, I wasn't talking about you. I know that you. That's funny. You do meet all the requirements, don't you? 3 stories, we'll call it 2. No, it wasn't you. Hold on one second. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and take a look here at everybody and see who's popped in. Hey, Nate, happy Tuesday to you. Thanks for being here. And the 33 Bean, well, thanks for being here. Oops, wrong account. Dan, thanks for being here. I see that you got your spike installed or built. Congratulations. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot Radio, what's going on? Thanks for being here. Don says, I can't get out too far behind my house. My neighbor's cows scare me. And thanks for being here, Don. And Steve, the fishing Santa. Welcome. Hilarious. That's cool. I like that. Appreciate it. You know, I don't have too much more today, and I don't know if you can see, but I'm a little bit behind. Next week, I won't be operating a live stream probably at all. Probably even Saturday, I won't operate a live stream. I really need to get these things done called taxes. So it's going to get really busy here for me for a couple of weeks. And I'm going to have to step away. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I'm doing what I can. I want to talk real quick about, we kind of spoke about this, right? It's 4 batteries. I use Samsung batteries. It's a Bella Moo battery holder in the parallel. I bought it off of a guy, the case off of a guy, but it is available on Amazon, the case. And now what I got to go do is I'm going to go get risers, and actually I'll probably just 3D print risers and some M3 screws and screw on the case to the back of this board here. And we'll do some cable management. The rack whisk block is available on Amazon. It's a mini. It's about $30, and it comes with your Bluetooth antenna. It does come with an internal antenna as well, but it's just like not great. Anyway, in the Alpha 915 antenna, I really like my 8 dB gain antenna you're about to see in just a moment. But the thing about the Alpha antenna is it's about I don't know, a quarter of the size. It's about this long instead of, this long or whatever. So it's nice and convenient for the top of this case that this Alpha 915 antenna exists. Of course, it's not as much as a performer as what I'm about to show you. This is a really good compromise, though, if you're doing an outdoor solar portable node. Whereas, like what I'm about to show you now, if you're trying to do an outdoor solar node, this might be a little bit more difficult to work with. And let's see if you could see that on screen. Okay, you kind of can. Hold on just a moment. Could I just do that? Yeah. Okay, that's like a really bad photo. It's like really dark. Let's see if I can't brighten that up with Photoshop here real quick. Not really. Yeah, that works. Wow, way cool, way cool. Many of you might know that I'm subjected to living in a homeowners association, which means if I breathe wrong, I get fined, and it's gotten pretty bad here lately. I'm not going to listen to your comments about you should never live in an HOA. You don't know my circumstances, so leave me alone. But with that, this is the solution that I came up with on my second floor. And what I have here is the following. I have what they call a Station G2. This device here, it has a built-in amplifier. So I believe it could do something like up to 4 watts, of course, legality aside. So 1 watt out on non-amateur radio bands. And it also does have really decent noise filtering, as well as it runs 9 to 14 volts. The numbers aren't going to be correct, but it's called the Station G2. Right now, if you're talking about the best unit you could get in the world for Meshtastic, I cannot tell you that this is it or this is not it. And the reason for that is because, again, we've talked about in the past that everybody's use case is going to be different. And I can't tell you that your use case is going to make it so that you need, multiple watts. But at my house, for a better connection and for better coverage, I use a G2 as high up as I can get it. And it has just a little bit more power as well. Now, from that Station G2, and I'll answer your question in just a moment, I think, Don. Oh, man. I run an ACASOM 915 megahertz cavity filter. And what that does is it basically helps to reduce interference and noise that might be being picked up by the Station G2 by surrounding electronics and things in this environment too. So I'm trying to increase the amount of signal noise ratio and the amount of RSSI that my radio might be able to, the amount of a signal that my radio might be able to cleanly pick up, I think is a very broad and basic way to put it. And then I go into this 8 dBi antenna that I got off of Amazon. And I could link these if anybody ever wanted to see them. But you can see here, I'm just plugged into an outlet with no outlet cover. And it's kind of annoying me right now, but it's a USB-C straight into the Station G2. This has a lot of great advantages. This is also what's on the tower is the Station G2 with the cavity filter. Now on the tower, I have a different antenna only because that's like kind of what was on the tower at the time. But for the use case of me having a, let's call it a static node that's going to be helping my smaller nodes get out and send and receive signals, this is it for me. I mean, this is the icing on the cake. And when you're comparing this to something like the rack that we just showed you a moment ago, yeah, power. There's a lot more power with the Station G2, and I believe that the noise filtering is quite a bit better as well. But the problem is then again, you're going to have a really hard time with, this device trying to power it with batteries and solar, and you're going to need a larger solar panel. You're going to need probably more batteries as well if it's running that much power, depending on the current, the amount that it's consuming, the battery's consuming. So I just wanted to show off of those couple of things because I think that it's important to consider at least having multiple units, if not for driving around and doing a site survey with 2 small handheld units like the T-Dex, continuing to start to build up your network. And then when you have 2, you're going to have 4. And then when you get 4, you're going to have 8. And I know this for the truth. Let me go ahead and just jump in here and see if what the comments were here. I can't get out behind my cows. Okay. Use the cows to spread the mesh. Oh yeah, just put a mesh on every cow. Like a T1000E. I think it would be a good idea to again, get those connections out there and to be able to chat with some people and see if you might be able to even convince the state park to allow you to put something up on one of their poles or something like that too, right? I kind of go into it with the perception of one of the things I really want to point out is I saw this guy the other day just completely, I guess you'd call it dogging. Yeah, that sounds like a cool word. He was completely dogging some ham radio operators for having Meshtastic nodes with their call signs on it, saying that, oh, this is bad OPSEC. And then he went on to like make fun of the ham radio operators, and it was like the most disgraceful thing I've ever seen. But this guy who was trying to be anonymous, what he doesn't realize is you keep quiet and you allow them to continue to keep building their mesh network because it helps you, whether or not you care about his obscurity. Maybe he doesn't care about his obscurity. And even if it hits the fan, like, what's it going to bother you? If you are so aggressive toward the fact that he used his ham radio call sign, maybe he takes all his nodes down because he doesn't want anything to do with it, and therefore you've just killed the mesh. I don't want to say you killed the mesh, but you've seriously hindered the mesh if all of a sudden people start dropping out because there's some guy out there trying to dox you. By the way, I'm very well aware my information's out there, and it's just like, that's another good suggestion right here. Send up a drone. We'll talk about that in a second. My point being, though, it's like, recognize that eventually everybody and anybody who's on the mesh, you don't have to be friends with them. You don't have to like them. But if you keep civil with them, you might be able to use them for whatever your plans are whenever whatever hits the fan. I'm just saying, like, it makes sense to me. And that's a good point, too. Gary mentions about send up a drone. The other day I put out a video from austinmesh.org. And austinmesh.org had mentioned something really cool. And one of the things they mentioned was, coordinate with people around you once a week or once a month to put as many drones or get as much in the air as high as you can in your area to conduct like a site survey, but also to broadcast, let's call it broadcast, a message with maybe like a website address. Say, don't forget to visit mcmesh.org. A local host, I used McMesh. McMesh.org. I don't know if that's a site, so please don't go there. And if it's an adult site, my apologies, I didn't know. But McMesh.org or whatever. And all of a sudden, maybe somebody who didn't think there was anything on the network, there's so many drones in the air, you've basically like spammed your area with like Meshtastic information, right? And now they're able to go there, and at least they have some kind of contacts in the local area so they can find out about meetups. Maybe they learn a little bit more. And realistically, at that point, too, maybe they start to understand when they get to that website where they need to focus their literal energy toward, right? So think about those things. I think that's awesome. But it all starts just having one node. Not really. It starts with having two nodes. And I really do think that starting off Meshtastic, we're only on day 4 here. We build a couple of nodes. But I do really think with Meshtastic, somehow when you start, you should consider having multiple nodes if you don't know of anybody else in your area, or if you're wanting to build your own mesh network. Start with 2, figure out what you got to do from there, site surveys and so forth. McMesh.net. So with that, I didn't have too much today to talk about. I'm still feeling it a little bit, and then I got all those orders back there. But I wouldn't mind just kind of shooting the breeze for like 5 minutes or 6 minutes if you'd like. And maybe answer some questions. Look, they're like everywhere now. This is probably the cheapest node that you could buy that you would build yourself. Would be the Helltech, and I think that this is the version 2. Oh, this is a version 3. The difference is USB-C on version 3. Like there's a lot to consider. There are dozens of nodes around my area, and we exactly chat in the evenings. No clue where they are or who they are. And that's completely fine too. No, I understand what you're saying. There's tons of nodes in your area, and you guys have conversations, and you don't need to know who they are nor where they are. The nice thing about Meshtastic, let's go to obscurity a little bit more though. Like I said, Some of us don't care about obscurity, and that's okay. Everybody's going to have their opinion that you should be obscuring yourself too. And one of the things that Meshtastic, the app, allows is you could set your location to a general area or not be a precise location, meaning when your information is sent, by the way, the Rack Whisk block as well as the Station G2 don't have GPS, but in the Meshtastic app, you could, or the client, you could set the GPS location for something you want. And it doesn't have to be a precise location. You could have it in a window that's 1.8 miles, 3 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles in difference. And that's fine then if you're trying to be a little bit more or less noticeable on where exactly you are, which I understand. Yeah, if you have supplies, I'm thinking worst case scenarios here, but if you have supplies or you have equipment, you don't want the potential enemy to know where you are down the road. I recognize that 100%. But you could still, just like Dan is saying here, we chat every evening, you could still chat every evening. Hey, out here we have a daily trivia. I think it's really cool. I don't know that as a 7.5 week Meshtastic expert, I don't know if I can actually answer the MTBF of the Heltex. I could tell you I had a Heltec on my Morcerino, and it's dead. But if anybody could answer that question, yeah. And I'm not here to put anybody down. Like, I recognize that people are worried about security. Somehow they have to put down ham radio operators while doing so. That's on you guys, man. I'm just saying, get along. Even if you don't want to get along, recognize that if you don't get along, you have the potential to hinder a network that may potentially help you. Sorry, I'm very passionate about it. And that's about it. I mean, that's what I got today. Like I said, I'm probably not going to be able to stream Saturday nor next week. However, Saturday, April 12th, the Ham Radio Dude Parks on the Air Meetup Extravaganza for Northern Illinois, Southern Wisconsin, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Bigfoot Beach State Park, Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Be there. That's about all I got today, guys. Thanks a lot. We made our first contact. Parks on the Air. We made our first Parks on the Air Meshtastic contact. Kevin, WQ9F, did log it. And so we believe we were the first in the world to log the first Meshtastic Parks on the Air contact. And I guess we'll say 73 here. Doesn't sound like anybody's got too much, and I hope you're all doing well. It wasn't actively doing as much, but it was powered on for over a year. My 915 V2 unit was running on my home assistant setup for maybe a year before I moved it to a Meshtastic device. It's so funny because I didn't even realize I had Meshtastic devices in my house until you mentioned that too. And you were like, oh, I have a home assistant set up and these health techs. I'm like, wait a minute, I got those. Paul, I hope you're doing well. Nice to see you here today. 73 to you. Dan, 73 to you. Don, also 73. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot Radio, 73 to you. Guys, don't forget, it's April Fool's Day, so go play some radio pranks on some people or something. Local host, thanks for being here, 73 to you. And hey, also, don't forget, I posted in the community tab of my YouTube page, you can go to the Discord, and from the Discord, you can go down to the giveaway, the Shegu X6100 giveaway. The rules for the contest are in there, and the giveaway will be conducted on June 15th. 73 Nate, thanks for being here. Hopefully it was something beneficial for you, useful. No, I kind of talked fast, but I got to get back to work. And we got the Hamstick Warrior N5 SKT. All right, guys, take care. Have a good one.